Hi, everyone. Jessica Brown here, clinical nutritionist, author of The Loving Diet, and I want to have a conversation with you. If you are perimenopausal or menopausal, that is incredibly important. In fact, it's so important, it could actually save your life. And that is understanding your cardiovascular disease risk as you go into menopause. As we go into menopause, important changes happen in our body that some doctors are not talking about. I have an amazing healthcare team, and nobody sat me down and said, "Oh, you're going through menopause or you're about to go through menopause. Here's the things that we're going to start tracking." Now, they tested my cholesterol, yeah, but nobody was looking at my cardiovascular and metabolic markers and preparing me that 1 in 3 women are going to be dying of cardiovascular disease. That's more women than die of breast cancer. And when you hit menopause, that's when that statistic gets that high. When we're young, the chances of dying of cardiovascular disease are not that high. But when you hit menopause, those numbers go up drastically. And if you have something like diabetes on top of it, those numbers increase even more. So nobody sat me down and said, "Here's some things that are going to happen inside your body and why." Nobody told me that when I started to go through menopause, that my blood pressure would naturally increase. My cholesterols would increase. My visceral fat would increase on my body. In fact, I had a DEXA scan that showed how much my visceral fat had increased. I couldn't even believe it. Visceral fat is the metabolically active fat that surrounds and pads the internal organs that is a direct contributor to cardiovascular disease. None of my doctors told me that. I went on this journey for cardiovascular disease by accident, and I started to become really interested in it because about 1.5 years ago, I got tested for a life insurance policy and my blood work came back and I was like, what is going on? I was almost pre-diabetic. My blood pressure was increased. My weight had increased. I was so startled. And it really set me on a journey to take back some of my health and make some really important changes so I could make sure to reverse the cardiovascular disease risk that I saw coming down the pipeline. And while you're young and you're just going through menopause, that's the time to decrease your risk. That's the time where we have the most control to make some changes in our life so that we are not that statistic of 1 in 3 women dying of cardiovascular disease as we age. I created a blood lipid panel because I needed it. I started asking my doctors questions when I had that life insurance policy and I was so upset by my test results. Do you know my doctors actually denied me tests because they said I wasn't at risk? But I knew I was at risk. So I've created a panel that you can run on yourself, and it's not even that expensive. It's literally the fraction of a cost of what it would be to run through your doctor. So I could understand my baseline so that I could take simpler steps now at the age that I'm at that are harder to reverse 10 years from now. And I think it's such an important conversation to be having. So many people on social media are talking about just lift heavy weights because it preserves bone loss. It does, yes. Just eat more protein, it helps with your energy. And yes, it does. But nobody's talking about how many women are going to die of heart disease. And I want to start talking about it. You can run the panel that I've created for myself below. I have a link. You can run it on your own. You get the test results. As a nutritionist, I do this all the time, but it's more important for you to take it to your doctor to let them know what your disease risk is, if you have any. Also, to help you understand if you're moving in the right direction health-wise. Also, if you don't subscribe to me on YouTube, I have a channel called The Loving Diet, and I'm going to be posting more videos about some of the lifestyle changes I've created to help lower my disease risk. And by the way, I've drastically lowered my disease risk in the last year after having my own journey with cardiovascular disease. So I want to start talking about some of the things that I did so that you don't waste your time and you don't waste your money, because I certainly don't like to do either. And many of you know that don't like my clients to be on excess amounts of supplements. And I think it's important to understand what somebody who is going through menopause is doing for themselves, because I certainly want to hear from the women who are going through menopause instead of people who aren't going through menopause about how to do the journey. So I'm curious what has happened to you, what your thoughts are. Follow me over on YouTube. I'm curious to hear what your experience has been and get to know you better.